Hi everyone, Josie here. Thank you so much for joining me on Astrolata as always. So if you haven't already guessed by the background, what we're going to be speaking about today is Uranus going retrograde. So we're going to talk about what that means for you guys individually based on your ascendant sign or your sun or your moon sign. You can check all three of those. But we're also going to take a look first at the general energy of Uranus, what it's doing in the sign of Taurus. And of course, it's also a bit of an interesting retrograde for me personally. And that's just because one of the biggest astrological events of 2021 has been the square between Uranus and Saturn, which we are all definitely feeling on a collective level. It's, the old versus the new that are in this, kind of battle, progressing things forward versus trying to keep things the same. So, it's wanting freedom versus being kind of stuck and limited. So we've all definitely been feeling that. But especially over the past couple of days, actually, the inspiration for this video came in a very Uranian way. It was unpredictable, it was unplanned, things like that. So actually, this morning I got a couple of phone calls from friends, and they were all talking about these like major upheavals that they're going through, or these major changes that they want to make that they're going through, or they're at least considering. And I'm like, okay, what is going on? So sure enough, Uranus is stationing to go retrograde right now. So depending on where you are in the world, the 19th or the 20th is when it will go retrograde, and it will be retrograde for approximately 5 months until January 18th. So it is, one of the outer generational planets. So it does take a longer period of time. And of course, retrograde time periods are all about an internalization of the energy. It can be a very powerful time period for this planet because those energies are felt a bit more stronger and on an internal type of level as well. So let's talk briefly about the energy of Uranus. So actually, before this video, I was just trying to, tap into the energy of Uranus. So I've been listening to this audio of this thunderstorm and kind of looking at this picture. And I just started thinking, I'm like, what a beautiful personification of the energy of Uranus is, lightning and things like that. So what happens when we watch, a lightning storm? It can be very, very exhilarating. It's, these bright flashes of light that kind of come out of nowhere, and they, for a brief amount of time, they light up the whole night sky and things like that. And we kind of trying to predict where they're going to pop up next, when they're going to pop up, and how they're going to look and things like that. So again, this unpredictability is there in these sudden flashes. So it's this really beautiful personification of the energy of Uranus. And at the same time, it's this light that's coming down from the sky or from the heavens, and it touches Earth for a very short amount of time. So, it's associated with these flashes or bursts of inspiration or this cosmic divine type of knowledge being downloaded in some way. So, there's a lot of beautiful symbolic energy that is, connected between lightning and the energy of Uranus. And of course, when we're watching a thunderstorm, people do experience that a little bit differently. So, some people it's very exhilarating, some people it's very relaxing, some people are in awe, and other people are frightened or they're unnerved and things like that. So, it will kind of depend on how you respond to those things. But this particular retrograde, Uranus will be stationing at 14 degrees of Taurus, and it will retrograde to 10 degrees of Taurus over this period of time. And so if you have personal planets, especially between 10 and 14 degrees of the fixed signs, well, then I would almost compare this, if it's kind of close to one of your planets, it might be a little bit more like, watching this storm or kind of having this little bit detached type of observation of things and things like that. It can still be felt, it can still be seen. But if you have a planet between 10 and 14 degrees of the fixed signs, it's more like kind of getting hit with this lightning bolt. So you can expect major, shifts and changes and things like that as well. So that can be happening. So the general energy of Uranus, this is a very interesting planet. Of course, this is the planet that represents uniqueness and eccentricity. It's anything that's out there. It's anything that's operating outside of social norms, or seeking to kind of break boundaries and be authentic and unique and things like that. But it's a bit of a unique personality. So it as with every planet, there's a duality that can lie within each planet, but Uranus in particular, I do find interesting because it's almost like two things that have like a similar frequency or vibration, but they're felt kind of very differently. So Uranus is the rebel as well as the revolutionary. It is both electrifying and exhilarating, as well as it can be shocking. So we are creatures of habit. Sometimes change, when change comes, something swift can happen. It can knock us off balance and things like that. It can feel very uncomfortable, especially initially. But a lot of times, those experiences are the ones that put us into, the path or direction that we need to be, and things like that. So it can become quite good, but Uranus is also connected to the nervous system. So it can be a source of, anxiety, or, high level of stress, or, disruption. Basically, Uranus represents all of those as well. So, even using the analogy of lightning again, Uranus can be, or a lightning storm can be this, beautiful kind of scenery, but also, which actually we're literally seeing here in BC, lightnings are a source of a lot of the fires. So they can cause a lot of destruction. So that something kind of new can be born, but it can be, this difficult, just very disruptive type of energy as well. Uranus is also a planet of great speed. So things when they're related to Uranus can happen very fast. They can happen very suddenly as well. This planet also, remembering that the actual planet itself, Uranus, is the planet that spins on its side. So that's also a very interesting point to make, because Uranus is always representing doing things in a different way. It's a different perspective. It's on its side, or it represents, doing things out of, the social norm and things like that. So very, very much doing things their own way. So this planet is also associated with, outsiders, or, those living on the fringe, or those that are off the beaten path in some way, or out of the box thinkers and things like that. It's a very genius planet, but it's also associated on its shadow side with, like criminals and things like that. So people who are operating outside of the normal laws and rules and regulations of society and things like that. It's also a planet of frequency and vibration. So therefore, it rules things like mass communication. It's kind of the information that comes through the airspace. So that's why it's connected to, the telephone, the radio, the internet, all those, kind of things, as well as these intuitive downloads. So those things that kind of come out of nowhere are also seen. On, a feeling level, this can be, again, a very exciting and stimulating type of energy, or it can cause a lot of anxiety and nervousness, unpredictability, things like that. In general, this planet is a planet of innovation, science, discovery, technology, innovation. Anything that's futuristic or progressive or advanced or unique or eccentric is seen. But it's also, it can represent kind of like weird things happening, unpredictability of things, and it does have an energy of chaos as well. So, the way that, if it's affecting some of your personal planets, the way that it will be felt will be kind of based on the aspect. But the most important thing, I think, with Uranus going retrograde is to kind of step into change, to embrace change, to welcome change, even if it feels difficult for a certain period of time. Uranus, of course, is also connected to, it's a visionary, so it's connected to long-term goals, and of course, humanitarian causes, social injustices, and standing up for what you believe in, and things like that. And it does rule, friends or groups that you're part of, things like that as well. And of course, it's a very unconventional planet, so it's very much expecting kind of the unexpected, because it's a very unpredictable planet in nature. So, very interesting planet. So now we need to also consider that this planet is going retrograde. So what does the planet do when it goes retrograde? This is talking about an internalization of an energy, meaning that it's not its, active forward expression. It's more of a receptive type of expression. So it's expressed a little bit more internally. And when a planet goes retrograde, especially if it's hitting something personal for you, it's almost like the first pass of Uranus over this planet, something, kind of appears, things like that. As Uranus starts to go retrograde, it's almost like coming back for that thing, like, no, something needs to be reworked, something needs to be fixed, something needs to be corrected, or we're not done with this yet, basically. So generally speaking, whenever a planet goes retrograde, it's usually when a planet it appears to be moving backwards in the sky and it's closer to the Earth in some way. Of course, Uranus is a generational planet. It's connected to collective consciousness and things like that. So it's felt a little bit differently than the personal planets are, being that it's this outer generational planet. Regardless, though, retrogrades are all about, the re-words. So restructuring, revising, revisiting, re-innovating, reflecting, reevaluating those things connected to that house and the sign and what, where it's falling in your chart and things like that. So, it's associated with a period where you can be required to put more effort or place more emphasis on those things. Or rethink things that are connected to the house in which that planet is transiting. Of course, again, Uranus has quite a long transit, being one of the slower moving planets. So that does come into play. It can be felt in a little bit more subtle way as well. And also with retrogrades, things from the past can reappear according to the house that it's transiting and what that represents in your own personal chart and things like that. So that those things connected to those people or those areas of life can be resolved or released, re-innovated or revisited in some way. And when this planet moves in its forward or direct movement, that indicates this time period when, whatever you've put a lot of effort into, that internalization or that processing that you've done connected to those things can move forward in a powerful way. And if that work has been done, retrograde, periods, if, all that work has been done, then it is said that you can have better results with those things, that those things can be much more long lasting because they become integrated in some way with your being. So, that's also an important kind of, thing to mention there. Okay, so another thing I wanted to just briefly mention is a little bit about Uranus transiting the sign of Taurus. So of course, this is a 7-year transit. There's many great resources and videos talking about what Uranus is doing in the sign of Taurus. But just to kind of briefly touch base on that, because the fact that it's going retrograde means that also a lot of these things connected to Taurus can be going through this process of revision and things like that as well. So the energy of Taurus and the energy of Uranus, they are very, very different energies. Personally, I don't really like to call the generational planets, in fall or in debilitation, but it is said to be in its sign of debilitation, which, by the way, I do have a webinar coming out about the planets and their archetypes, the shadow and light sides, and how to look at dignities. That will be happening September 2nd. If you guys want to join me, that'd be awesome. Check it out. But, Taurus is this energy of stability. It's a very dependable energy. It's also, being the natural second house ruler. It's those things we need to support ourselves. It has this strong connection to earth and natural beauty and agriculture. It's resources, it's money, things like that. It's also values, what we find, valuable and things like that. So we can already see some of these things have been, really shaken up, even where I am in BC because of these fires. We have a little bit, our resources are a little bit unstable because, the transport in and out has been difficult with a lot of roads shut down, a lot of crops have been destroyed, things like that. So, there's this disruption with those things, of the things that we need to live and things like that with food and stuff like that. Taurus is connected to those. Taurus is also this very dependable, stable energy that's all about security and comfort and those types of things. So, again, Uranus is like, woo, like this very kind of unnerving, energy that brings about a lot of unpredictability. And Taurus as a sign is quite resistant to change. So, there's this, mismatch or incohesiveness with these two energies as it is. So, things connected to money, to land, to resources, self-worth, self-esteem, our own values, what we find valuable. All these things have been, shaken up. Taurus is also connected to, archives and collections and, history and things like that, banks and, money and collections of things, all of those. And of course is also connected to the throat and the voice, those types of things. So that's just a very, very brief kind of overview of, the mismatched energy between Uranus and the sign of Taurus. But there is one interesting point that I wanted to make. So, I'm not a historian or, someone who knows a lot about mythology, but I did do some research around the energy of Uranus and the mythology around Uranus. And so basically what I learned is that, Uranus had these 12 sons, and the youngest of those 12 sons was Kronos, otherwise known as Saturn. And Uranus's wife was Gaia, which is represented by the Earth, which, immediately I found this very interesting kind of connection with what's going on astrologically right now, because Uranus is transiting Taurus, and Taurus is the sign that's most strongly connected to, Mother Earth and things like that. And the way that this story goes basically is that there was some conflict between Gaia and Uranus. So basically, Kronos, Saturn, ended up castrating Uranus, and through him doing that, apparently his testicles fell into the ocean, and Aphrodite, or Venus, was born. So I also found that to be an interesting connection, being that Uranus is transiting this Venus ruled sign. So in a way, this square between Uranus and Saturn, it's almost like something kind of being painfully removed from your life so that something beautiful can be born. So I did just want to kind of mention that, because there is some synchronicities between that story with, what is going on in the sky and things like that. So this may very well be a time period when, things can be removed in a very swift or painful way. But again, something beautiful can be, kind of born from this energy. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the 12 signs, but really quickly, just to kind of summarize all of that, basically, what this retrograde can mean, or, a few important things about this retrograde. It'll be felt a little bit differently for everybody based on your own individual chart. But the major themes of this are, connected to change. Uranus is the liberator. It can talk about, enlightening or the awakening of things, right? So this retrograde, it can represent an area of life where maybe you've already been experiencing some level of change. And so this might be a time period of, introspection around the changes that are going on around you, where you're integrating those into your personality, or where you're going through like this internal processing in regards to those events before you can move forward and progress with those things. On another level, it can also represent that maybe you've been trying to change something, and something is just not working. And so it's requiring a lot of extra thought or a lot of extra effort for those changes to be made, or to have, this effect, because it's almost like the definition of insanity, right? So doing things the exact same way and expecting a different result. Well, this Uranus retrograde can definitely shift your perspective, allow you to kind of, think about these things, come at them from a different angle, be a little bit more experimentational, those types of things. So Uranus is this very out of the box experimental type of energy as well. So if you've been trying to make changes, this can be the time period where you start to see things from a different perspective or take a different approach as well. Also, in the sign of Taurus especially, this is a really beautiful retrograde for anybody trying to do, personal development work, especially around self-worth, around self-esteem, around what your values are, what you value, those types of things as well. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry, I just got slightly distracted. So yeah, really good for coming to those internal realizations, or having sudden, insights around, those types of things as well. This can also be a time period that where you go through a huge revision of your goals or your vision for the future as well, or even things connected to friends or networks, groups that you're a part of, causes that you're supporting. So it can indicate a shift in perspective, a shift in vibration or frequency in a certain area of life, or even, within your being that it is retrograde. So that comes in. And Uranus is also very much connected to the authentic self and, finding your authentic truth, or what is your own personal truth. So doing any work around those types of things can have really amazing results as well. Also, really great energy for receiving any kind of like intuitive downloads of information in connection with these areas of life, or it can represent something that maybe you're going to be putting a lot of effort into. And maybe it's a little bit, maybe you get like this bright, like this brilliant inspiration or something like that. And so this can also be the time period where you're kind of, honing those things, or kind of working on those things behind the scene to be released later type of energy. For some, this will also represent, the onset of major life changes and shifts and things like that. So again, embracing, change, embracing uniqueness, very, very important elements of navigating this retrograde. Uranus is also connected to new age things, or alternative methods or approaches. So again, becoming a little bit more experimentational, having breakthroughs or breakdowns in these areas, very possible as well. And again, very amazing for new inspiration and ideas. So, tapping into that energy, planning the future, things like that, what you want that to look like. So this energy is very supportive of all of those things. Okay, so now let's take a quick look at each of the 12 signs based on your sun, moon, or rising sign. I do recommend checking all three. Of course, though, they do represent very different things. So when you're watching transits that are happening from the ascendant, this is what's happening in physical reality, your outer experience type of thing. When you are looking at transits from your moon placement, it's talking about what's happening kind of from an internal standpoint. So it's, the moon is connected to our emotions, our home, our family, our private life, and the unconscious mind. It's also what we're unconsciously creating and things like that, and how we're emotionally responding to our environment. The sun has something more to do with free will and conscious creation. Of course, it's connected to career and vocation as well. So even personally, I watch transits from my sun, using the sun as the rising sign if I want specific details around what's going on with career and things like that. But always important to combine all three, because you get this really beautiful picture that's working on a couple different levels, and combining all three of those can give you a really good idea of kind of how this is going to be manifesting in these different ways for you. Okay, so we're going to start with Taurus. So if you have Taurus sun, moon, or rising sign, this means that this retrograde will be happening in your first house. So this becomes incredibly powerful. This can alter, your whole life path direction, especially if you have one of those energies, especially between 10 and 14 degrees of Taurus. So what is the first house? This is your physical body. This is your appearance. This is your approach to life. This is how you initiate things. It's a house of new beginnings and things like that as well. So if you have been trying to make, changes with any of these things, this can be a time period where you're kind of reflecting and revising what you want those to kind of look like, or doing this deep kind of integration of the changes that have already been going on into your personality, into who you are as a person. So taking all the outer circumstances that have happened and integrating them on a more internal level. And this will have a powerful influence over your whole life path and life path direction. So this retrograde is very much, where you can have a breakthrough or breakdown. So also being the house of physical body, do be aware of any kind of nervous energy or extra stress or tension, things like that, managing those things the best that you can. But again, it's also where you can have breakthroughs. So for Taurus rising people, especially, they love this kind of continuity kind of thing. So they can be a little bit resistant to change. So this can actually be very liberating, very, amazing, lead to amazing breakthroughs, especially if you're wanting to change something about your physical body, whether that's, the way you take care of it, the way that you appear. things connected to eating habits or health or diet, any of those things, even how you approach the world, how you initiate things, what your authentic truth is, and how to approach things from that kind of perspective or from that standpoint. So becoming clear on what your personal truth is, who you are authentically as a person, and doing, any of that personal development work there. If you have been trying to make a big change and it's just not going the way you want, this can be a big reevaluation of those changes and figuring out a different approach to those things as well. That can also be going on. So seeing things from a different perspective in this area of life, and that can alter your whole kind of view on life and things like that. This can also be what you're liberating yourself from or what you're detaching from. So that can even be, some aspect of, your personality or some aspect of something that you strongly have identified with in the past and things like that as well. This is also where you could be revolutionizing something. So maybe you're taking important actions during this time period that will revolutionize your whole life or your whole perspective on life and things like that as well. Or maybe you're revolutionizing your style or your appearance in some way, something like that. So that can all go on. But in the first house being such a powerful house, this will be felt quite strongly. So, leaning into change and, kind of allowing some space for that, trying not to be too resistant to it, as that can create a lot of stress or frustration or nervous energy. This retrograde is also where we can have unexpected or sudden types of developments. So again, house of physical body, of appearance, personality, how you approach the world. This is also very rebellious and experimental energy. So you can be doing a lot of, rebelling kind of against, things that maybe you don't agree with, or maybe you're changing your viewpoint or perspective on something in a very powerful way, or becoming more experimental in some way with kind of trying new things and stuff like that. So those can all be manifestations that are going on with Uranus going through your first house. Of course, if it's your sun or moon, a little bit different of an interpretation. For example, my best friend has Taurus moon, and just she was one of the phone calls that I received this morning. She's like, I think I'm going to move like out of province or whatever, like so far away from her home, from her family. She's always been very tight knit and things like that. She's like, I just need to be kind of free and, do some experimenting. And that has something to do with place of living. If it's sun, maybe that's more connected to career, something like that. So that can also be going on. But liberating yourself from something, detaching yourself from something, releasing something, that maybe you had an unhealthy type of attachment to. So, sorry about that. So, even releasing any kind of toxic behaviors, toxic relationships, toxic eating habits, any of those things. This is a big revamping that can be going on with your outlook on life and with your personality and appearance in general. So quite powerful. Okay, then if you have Gemini Rising. So for Gemini Rising, this is happening in the 12th house, which is one of the houses that's not visible from the ascendant. This is a very magical, mysterious type of house. So a lot going on here. This is a house of secrets. It is a house of, also kind of things done behind our back and things like that. So it can represent, hidden motives, hidden enemies, things like that. But also our own self-undoing. This is the house of the subconscious mind. So if you have anything that you're working to kind of release, self-undoing behavior, those types of things, you can have massive breakthroughs. This is also the house of sleep and dreams and escapism. So you could be reinventing something connected there, or you can even be experiencing some kind of disruptions with these things. So for example, I have a Gemini rising and I've had like this kind of really nervous mental energy, and I'm not quite sure where it's coming from, but it is disrupting my sleep and things like that. And I've been having really weird dreams already. So it can manifest that way too. But if you, do things like creative visualization, you spend time in isolation, you do things like meditation, journaling, those types of things, you can have some really powerful kind of realizations and things like that. Also, if you things connected to your own spirituality, you could be trying new things here. You could be looking at things from a different kind of perspective with those things. Again, really great for releasing any self-undoing behavior, because this retrograde is about, you know, what do you need liberation from? What is shifting? And, you know, this planet is all about frequency and vibration, and it's happening in a very subconscious house as well. So it can indicate a lot of activity going on there, especially on that internal level. This is also where something very sudden and unexpected can happen. So it is one of the houses of losses, of dissolvement of things. Also, you know, again, those behind the scenes environments. So jails, hospitals, asylums, retreats, any kind of confined space, institutional type of setting. So, you know, there can be something going on there. Also, this is one of the houses of escapism. So of course, you know, in parts of the world, we're still having lockdown and things like that. So maybe you get creative or, you know, intuitive about, you know, how you, you know, escape. There's many different ways of doing that. There's healthy ways, there's unhealthy ways, but there could be experimentation going on there. Also house of bed pleasures. So, I mean, in that sense, maybe this can be quite good. This is also, sorry about that. You know, where you're trying something differently, or where, you know, if you have, like, for example, if you're in any kind of creative, imaginative, spiritual, artistic types of fields and things like that, you can have some really amazing insights and ideas and inspirations during this time period. So that can be really, really great. And maybe you're working on something behind the scenes as well. This is a behind the scenes house, to be released at, you know, this later time. Or you can be having very deep, psychological, subconscious types of, you know, realizations and things like that, you know, that can have this ripple effect, as well. And it's also, though, where you can have a breakthrough or breakdown. So maybe you have a breakthrough with something connected to healing, something connected to spirituality, an artistic breakthrough, or a breakthrough, during your research or something like that. Those can all be going on, or it can represent a breakdown. So, you know, on a mental level, and this is a water house, so, you know, there can be some kind of, stress going on in the background that feels very disruptive and things like that. And it can be kind of hard to put your finger on where that's kind of coming from, as well. Also, a house of, you know, foreign countries and things like that. Maybe some of you are thinking of, you know, foreign relocation or something like that, or just taking a trip, breaking free, having some freedom and escaping from everything, and figuring out unique ways to kind of do that or plan that and things like that. Or they can even just kind of be bubbling beneath the surface at this current time. Okay, now if you have a Cancer rising, then this will be happening in your 11th house. So, you know, this has kind of a multiple array of meanings, but a retrograde planet, first of all, can bring things back from the past. So, what is the 11th house? The 11th house is friends. It's also the house of older sibling as well. It's groups that you're a part of, things like that. So you could be changing your perspective on some of these people or some of these things. This is also one of the houses of income and how you're earning money and long-term goals, gains, desires, and wishes. So there can be a huge, like, reinvigoration, kind of going on around what it is that you kind of see for the future, what your goals are, who your friends are, what groups you're connected to. There can even be some kind of liberation or detachment from some of those people. In terms of older sibling, you know, that can also indicate that they're going through, you know, this big kind of shift in their own life as well. But you can start to see things differently here. You can start to approach things differently here. And so this can also indicate, changing the way that you kind of approach, or make money, basically. So thinking of new ideas or re-innovating an old idea and things like that, or an old dream that you had, maybe bringing that kind of back to life or doing some work around those things. This is also a very social house. So, the way you connect with others can be going through, you know, some kind of, reevaluation. So it's where you can also have a breakthrough or breakdown. So, you know, breakdown in communications with, you know, groups or social media or large audiences of some kind, or a breakthrough there. So that can also, be going on. And it's also, you know, an area of life where you can be kind of, liberating yourself from something again. So, you know, if you are, like currently making money or something like that. Maybe you decide to do something kind of, freelance or do something on the side and liberate yourself from the day-to-day grind or something like that. If you have, it can show where you can have unexpected or sudden development. So maybe that's even in the lives of friends or, social contacts and things like that. That can also be going on. So being aware of those. And it's also where you can gain inspiration and new insight. So, for some of those new ideas, or even like if you're involved in any kind of social causes and things like that, humanitarianism type of work and all of those, there could be a re-innovation. So even seeing things from a different perspective, maybe you get behind a cause of some kind that, you never expected you would be, or something like that as well. That can also go on. And the 11th house can also be connected to your vision for the future. So there could be, massive, kind of shifts going on there. Quite interesting that Uranus is stationing today. And actually I got this, my dad is a Cancer rising, my brother's a Cancer rising, and my dad actually just popped up out of nowhere. It was actually one of the disruptions of this video today. And, he just popped up out of the blue and he's like, I'm moving. He's like, I'm gone. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, he's like, I need to do soul searching. I just need to be around different people and things like that. It's very much, Uranus stationing in the 11th house. So his goals have changed. His social group has changed, all these things. The way he's going to be earning money has changed. So, all connected to that energy. So big shifts, because I can see it in many close personal relationships. So maybe you guys are already seeing some of that as well. Also, with 11th houses, like-minded people, and kind of who we associate there with. It's also connected to media, marketing, things like that. So if you're in any of those types of fields, you can have new innovations or try things in a bit of a different way, or maybe meet some new kind of unique people that are more kind of authentic to who you are as a person, as collaborators or as making connections, kind of finding your unique tribe and things like that. That can also be going on. Okay, so for Leo rising, again, this is happening in a very important house, the 10th house. So this is the house of career, vocation, social status, highest achievement, social recognition, all of those. So when it comes to social status, something about your social status can suddenly change or fluctuate, or you could want some kind of, detachment from a certain title that you have or something connected to your reputation can kind of be disrupted as well. With career and vocation, of course, Uranus is a planet of freedom, of liberation. This can be a time period where you're considering or making very important career decisions that, have a powerful influence. So maybe it's, deciding this work is not true and authentic to who I am as a person. I'm not living my truth through my work and things like that, and wanting to do something that's more kind of authentic to you as a person. Or, engaging in some kind of freelance type of work, doing some kind of online work or something going on with technology or something like that as well. For example, I know someone who has a Leo rising and, when Uranus, actually, when Uranus went retrograde last time, he actually decided to say, you know what, I don't want to be part of this organization. He's like, I'm going to freelance. I'm going to do this on my own. He set up his own, shop, started doing all those things, doing, all those things kind of off the beaten path, which is very Uranian. And then now, actually, the day that Uranus stations, I got a phone call out of the blue and he's like, oh, I'm going to build smokers on the side. And I'm going to, also kind of freelance doing that. And he already has like clients lined up and things like that. So I can also talk about, new connections that are work related and things like that, that cause some kind of shift for you. Of course, this transit can also talk about what you need freedom from, what you need liberation from. That can be, something that's going on in the life of, the father or the boss figure, or maybe you need liberation or freedom from, an authoritative figure of some kind. So that can also be going on, or the relationship there can be somehow disruptive that, pushes you to kind of reevaluate things in this area of life as well. This is also where you can be trying, a different perspective, a unique perspective, looking at things a different way. So the kind of work that you're doing, how you're approaching it. This can be, kind of receiving new insights and inspirations connected to work as well. So it can be really great for invigorating again this area of life, or bringing a lot of innovation to this area of life as well. That can definitely be seen. It is a bit of a stressful energy. So this can talk about some kind of work-related stress or some kind of disruptions that sort of stress you out, or need require you to be a little bit adaptable, or try new things, or think out of the box, and those types of things can happen. Again, being open to change in this area of life, that can be great. And it's also where you can experience sudden or unexpected developments as well. So I have a Leo moon, and I just said this in the Cancer Rising section, but I got a surprise visit from my dad today, and out of the blue, he's like, I'm moving. He's like, goodbye. It like just crazy out of the blue, crazy kind of thing. So also, in the lives of people connected to the 10th house, those types of things can be happening, or in regards to career and vocation. Okay, so okay, we said that. Where you're revolutionizing something. So you could be connecting, you can be revolutionizing something connected to, your reputation, or, it's also highest achievement. So maybe you're, rethinking this area of life, and like, no, I want something more. I want something, more authentic to me. I'm going to try this new thing. I'm going to become experimental here. So that can also happen in this area of life for you guys. It's also where you can become more, again, experimental or rebellious in some ways. So, there can also be that rebellious type of energy going on here. So that comes in, whether that's work related, or again, with the people connected to this house as well. Okay, so now let's take a look at Virgo rising. Okay, so for Virgo risings, this is happening for you guys in the 9th house. So this is pretty exciting. This is a pretty lucky house. This is the house of your, again, vision for the future and things like that. It's also a house connected to foreign countries and foreign travel, cultural experiences. So you can become experimental with some of these things. Also the house of like beliefs and religion and spirituality, all of those. You can kind of start to see some of these things from a different perspective, or become a little bit experimental here. Also, this is where you can need some kind of freedom or liberation or detachment from. So really amazing time period for, removing any kind of negative or limiting beliefs that you may have. This can indicate a huge, like out of the blue kind of shift in your, kind of perspective on life, or what your beliefs are. So that becomes, very exciting, very invigorating. Also, this is the house of publishing. So, it can indicate, because Uranus retrograde can bring something back from the past. If you are publishing any kind of content, maybe you're bringing an idea back from the past, maybe you are implementing some form of, new technology to the way that you're doing that. So maybe you wanted to publish a book, and you decide, okay, well, I'm going to publish an ebook. Actually, I'm going to put it on Amazon or Kindle or whatever. So that can kind of happen, or a new method of approach of sharing your content, being the house of publishing. So also it is the house of, the teacher, preacher, mentor, guru, guide, coach, advisor, counselor. So if you're in any of those types of fields, you can kind of be reinventing the way that you approach those things, taking a new approach to how you are delivering those messages and things like that as well. So whether that's revamping your website, trying things on a different kind of platform, thinking of a new approach to be able to, sell those things or something like that, can happen. Or if it's, working with clients and things like that, a new approach, or, a new way to kind of help them have breakthroughs and things like that as well. The 9th house can also talk about the father figure as well, or your own teachers, gurus, inspirational figures, and things like that. So it can indicate some things coming back up from the past here. So it can even be running into a teacher out of the blue, and you have this amazing conversation. It gives you this really good idea, kind of re-inspires you. So because it's such a inspirational house as it is, and it has this connection to spirituality and all those things, of course, very good for intuitive types of downloads, and maybe those help you redefine your vision for the future and things like that. This is also the house of higher education and higher knowledge. So this can definitely indicate that maybe out of the blue, all of a sudden you're like, this is not what I want to do. And maybe you totally change your field of study, you get very excited about something else, or you're at least reevaluating, is this what I actually want to do? For education and things like that, or it can indicate a disruption with education. So maybe all of a sudden you have to take your course from online at home or something like that. Maybe you shift the kind of study that you're doing in a very dramatic, unexpected type of way. So maybe you're studying to be a doctor, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, I'm going to be a Reiki master or something like that. So it can indicate like these out of the blue kind of massive shifts. So this is where you can also be, kind of revolutionizing something, where you could be liberating yourself from something, detaching yourself from something. So, even with foreign travel, it can just be like out of the blue, like, oh no, I'm gone, I'm going. So suddenly decide to, I need freedom here. Cultural experiences, experimenting, with different kind of cultures or different belief systems and things like that, or at least doing some kind of research or exploration, that can definitely be going on as well. Okay, so also, your connection to something higher, higher path and purpose, things connected to morals. Again, there can be some kind of disruption going on here, or you can be having like a breakthrough or breakdown connected to one of these things. So in a way, it can be a source of stress again, or a kind of anxiety, or it can be, this very exhilarating type of experience where you start kind of exploring out of the box, like exploring new horizons. That's very, different from the way that you normally do things in this area of life. So that can also be going on. Okay, so for Libra rising. Okay, so for Libra, this will be happening, this retrograde, in your 8th house. So this is a very mysterious house. It's a very deep and complex house as well. So it is the house, one of the houses of finances for sure. So this house in particular is more about joint assets, joint resources and things like that, partners' money, whether that's business partner, spouse's money, things like that, joint assets that you have together, or things connected to insurances, taxes, loans, inheritances. So with Uranus going retrograde here, there can be some kind of liberation that goes on with these things. There could be some kind of sudden change, or, kind of in the 8th house, this upheaval or something that kind of happens out of the blue that happens here. So this can talk about receiving, some kind of unexpected money or inheritance or something like that for sure. This can also talk about, sudden changes or disruptions going on with how your partner makes money, or if you have joint assets with someone, it can even indicate out of the blue, they suddenly decide this is not for me. I'm stepping out, or even vice versa. Maybe you find someone suddenly that you kind of partner up with and start this joint endeavor with, where you're tied to them financially. So, again, there can be something here where you could be having like a breakthrough or a breakdown. So, it is a very also intense house. It's basically the house of everything people don't like to talk about. So it's, sex, intimacy, death, rebirth, crisis, transformation, the occult, anything mystical or hidden or taboo, those types of things. And it is a house of psychological trauma and some of those darker experiences that happen and things like that, but in a positive way. This is where, you can also have this breakthrough where you can be liberating yourself from something. So it can be liberating yourself from some kind of past trauma. Also, Uranus has a very fast and sudden type of influence. So it can talk about some kind of fast or sudden healing that can happen, or maybe doing a lot of deep research and deep investigation that shifts your perspective, or taking a different, approach to something connected to this area of life. So even if you are in, some of those financial fields, if you are, a healer, an occultist in any way, in fields where you're helping others navigate change or transformation, you can have a lot of breakthroughs in those types of fields, or suddenly make an important decision connected to the kind of work that you're doing that, really shifts things. So that can also come in. Also, being the house of sex and intimacy, this can be, again, liberating yourself from, something in that realm, or becoming more experimental here, becoming more kind of, rebellious and things like that. That can definitely go on, or kind of, reevaluating, the way that you're approaching some of those things. Okay, and this is like the house of sudden reversals. So this death and rebirth process. So, it can indicate something very fast, very suddenly kind of shifts, and then it's totally different. It goes through this total transformation of some kind. So that can definitely happen as well. And it's where you can be revolutionizing something. Of course, this is one of the more hidden houses. Again, it's a house that's not visible from the ascendant. Or is in an awkward angle from the ascendant, not making an aspect. So, this is also, again, changes that can be happening even just on a psychological level or with things connected to what's mine and what's yours, shared resources, things like that as well. Things connected to healing, all of those. So again, there can be some kind of disruptions here, but it can also be, things that lead you can have a lot of insight because of these things that might be initiated by crisis or something like that, but it leads to this amazing idea, or it leads to this like fast kind of healing and things like that as well. So those can be going on. Massive breakthroughs for sure can be going on there, and even more experimental when it comes to things like sex and intimacy, how you bond with another, things like that. Having breakthroughs there as well on a personal level can happen. Okay, so for Scorpio rising. So for Scorpio rising, this will be happening in your seventh house of relationships, of partnerships, of contracts, agreements, negotiations, all of those types of things. So Uranus going retrograde here, there can be some kind of disruptions that go on, or there can be some level of stress going on in relation to this house. That can be stress related to the partner, unexpected developments or sudden changes with the partner. Sometimes they can even talk about breakups and things like that. It is retrograde, so it can also bring back partners from the past, whether that's business or whether that's personal and things like that as well. But it's also where you could be revolutionizing something. So maybe you're revolutionizing the way that you approach relationships. Maybe your partner is actually doing some reevaluation of themselves, and can even be going through this kind of unusual time period where they're a little bit more experimental, or they're kind of trying kind of new things, or acting in a way that maybe a little bit unfamiliar, might be like a little bit eccentric and things like that as well. This can also, this is where you can have a breakthrough or breakdown. So this can indicate breakdowns within relationships, or a breakthrough within relationships. So Uranus is a very, very progressive energy. It wants to move forward. It wants to experiment, but it's also very rebellious. So that's where the breakdown can come from. There can be, some kind of sudden cutoff or something like that. Uranus is all about detachment and liberation as well. So if there are relationships in your life that are no longer serving you, they may be, removed during this time period, or at least reevaluated in some way. Or, partner can also be, kind of just feeling like, a little bit like detached, or something like that as well. So that can be going on. And this is also where you can be trying something different, trying unique approach, or seeing things a different way. So you might even notice like some, out of the blue things that your partner is doing, or the way that you approach relationships, being that this is also a house of projection and things like that. How your audience views you and things like that are seen through the seventh house. So that can be, you know, um, something connected to the authentic truth and the authentic self. So maybe partner is kind of stepping into that, or maybe you're kind of projecting that outwards, and others are seeing that as well. Because this is the house of how the audience accepts you and things like that. So there could also be dramatic or sudden shifts, with some of those things that can be going on. This is also where unexpected or sudden events can be happening. So it can show things that kind of happen out of the blue with, your partner, your business relationships, contracts, agreements, negotiations. So kind of expect surprises or things happening out of the blue in regards to this area of life as well, and with personal relationships and things like that. So there's a strong Uranian type of influence. You might even notice partner might start to kind of rebel more, become, more experimental in some way. Or, again, and this won't be for everybody, but for some people, it will indicate like a detachment from, certain relationships, or like a innovation of a relationship. So reinventing a relationship, becoming more experimental, like where is this going? Where are we progressing here? So forward movement as well. But it can be Also indicating, because Uranus, especially retrograde, is this very kind of nervous and anxious energy. So, it can even indicate that either they're going through big changes in their life, or even that relationships can somehow be a source of, stress and things like that for you. So maybe they need that reevaluation going on as well. This can also indicate if you've been trying to make changes in this area of life. Again, it can mean that you're starting to see things from a different perspective when looking at this area of life, or there could be some kind of sudden or shocking developments that go on that totally shift your perspective. And that can actually help you to, make some of those changes if you've been struggling with making any of those. Again, as I mentioned before, the definition of insanity is doing something the same way over and over again and expecting a different result. So this can kind of be, kind of go one of those two ways. It can be the straw that breaks the camel's back, so to speak, or it can be this total, reinvention of, kind of relationships and things like that, and how you approach them as well. um, for sure. Also, if you are, in any kind of, consultant-based fields, client-based fields, law fields, things like that, where you're dealing with a lot of one-on-one type of communication. If you're working in partnership with someone, again, there can be some kind of disruptive influence, but you can also be starting to shift things, see things from a different way, or again, reinvigorate this area of life with new ideas, with new inspirations. You can have sudden downloads of information or insights about this area of life as well. So that becomes quite good. Okay, so for Sagittarius rising, so if you are a Sagittarius rising, this will be happening for you in the sixth house. And this is the house of employment, of work, of day-to-day routines, habits, rituals, routines, all those things. So this transit, may want to liberate you from something. It's where, again, you can have a breakthrough or a breakdown of some kind. And so that can involve work life, a situation that's happening with coworkers, kind of a reevaluating, is this the kind of work that I want to do? Is this the kind of environment that I want to be in? And if you have any, habits, rituals, routines, things like that that you want to change, what an amazing time to kind of do some introspection around those, plan for the future there, figure out what you kind of want to release, what needs to be reevaluated, all of those. Um, and this is also where you can expect kind of sudden or unexpected developments. This is, this is very much the house of, kind of the victim or the savior. So it does represent, some of the more difficult aspects of life and things like that. It's a house of conflict, debt, disease, litigation, enemies, things like that. And of course, it represents, those lower levels of humanity and things like that. It's a house of pets or the disenfranchised, those less fortunate than us in some way, and is a house of service. On, its higher side, it's all about being of service. It's all about helping. It's about fixing a problem, correcting a problem. It's about health, diet, nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle. So this is the area of life where you can be kind of having some form of disruption. So your daily routines might get disrupted in some way, or you could be totally re-innovating this area of life. So making those changes, having a breakthrough when it comes to, health or, an exercise regimen. So maybe you've been trying to do that. And now with this planet going retrograde, you get to kind of see things from a different perspective, or you have these new ideas that support you here and you start implementing those changes. This can also represent, sudden change in work environment or something that you're doing on a regular basis as well. So for example, one of my best friends, she's a Sagittarius rising. She has a heavy duty mechanic shop, and she had just put in her lease. It's supposed to be 7 months till she's allowed to be out of there. She's like, nope, I don't care. She's like, I'm paying it. She's like, I'm going to open up my own shop at home. So, doing things like freelance work, switching up your daily routines in some way, being open to change in this area of life can be a very liberating and exciting type of experience, or it can, um, you know, being the house of health and things like that, do be aware of any kind of mental stress or anxiety that's kind of going on, or work related stress, or sudden events and developments that can be kind of stressful in this area as well. But this can also be where you revolutionize something, where you bring in these new ideas and insights and downloads of information and things like that as well. So that can actually be quite good if you are thinking of, reinventing something connected to work. so say you have like a project or something like that, maybe you have this work project that comes back up from the past to be revised in some way, and you just totally have all these new ideas and new pieces of information that make it like this brand new thing that you're able to, move forward later on and things like that as well. Again, really amazing for removing any bad habits. Uranus can be a very fast type of energy, and sixth house, can also be connected to health and things like that, diet. So it can indicate like a sudden shift in, the way that you eat or eating habits. Those can totally change. So you can apply this energy in a very positive and productive way while it is retrograde in the sixth house. So for Capricorn rising, okay, so for Capricorn risings, this is happening for you guys in the fifth house. So, first of all, this is the house of self expression. So, this becomes very positive if you have been wanting to or trying to make changes around expressing or embracing yourself authentically in some way, or breaking kind of mold or, social norms or boundaries when it comes to your own self expression or to your own creativity. Things coming back from the past, because it is retrograde, sometimes it can indicate romantic partners from the past coming back, or becoming more experimental with romance, more rebellious with romance, maybe implementing new age or progressive ways of dating and things like that as well. So the internet, or dating someone from a very different background, or someone who's kind of out of the social norm and things like that for you as well. Or again, it can indicate someone from the past coming back up, maybe in a very sudden and out of the blue, unexpected type of way, where that relationship might need some reevaluation, some kind of revisiting for whatever reason. Also being the house of fun and hobbies, things you like to do for fun, and creativity as well. It can indicate picking up old things from the past that maybe you previously enjoyed, and kind of having a new take on these things, or old creative ideas, picking them back up, and kind of revamping and revising and revitalizing those, bringing them back to life. So that can definitely come in. And this is an amazing transit if you want to do any work on a creative project, or channel any kind of insightful or have like intuitive downloads and things like that connected to creativity or a creative project that you have, or again, some of the ways that you're expressing yourself. This is, however, an area of life where you can have some unexpected developments or sudden types of events and things like that. So again, house of romance, dating, children, fun, recreation, entertainment, all of those. And it is a lucky house again. So it can be, unexpected types of luck and things like that, or, kind of, maybe all of a sudden, like something connected to, wanting to start your own business or something like that. Maybe you finally just decide to do it and take that risk, because this is a very risk-taking type of house as well. So it can indicate sudden or unexpected developments in this area of life as well. This is also where you can have a breakthrough or a breakdown. So the shadow side of Uranus is it can be a source of stress and anxiety and those types of things. So it can indicate that either, children can be a source of kind of stress or disruption and things like that. Or it can indicate that maybe they are going through some kind of powerful progression within their own life, or they are acting in a way that's very unique and authentic to themselves and things like that as well. So that can be going on. This is also an area of life where you can begin to take a different approach or have a different perspective, whether that's on your love life or what you consider to be, having fun, or a different approach when it comes to dealing with, children or romantic partners, or a different approach when it comes to a creative project or how you express yourself. So there can be, dramatic kinds of shifts and things like that there as well, out of the blue types of circumstances and all of those. This is also where you can, have out of the box kind of thinking and things like that. So in a house of, creative ideas and those types of things, creative projects, self-expression, the ways that we express ourselves creatively can even be, doing those things in a unique way that's in a progressive way, or utilizing technology or something that's kind of out of the norm for you, and implementing that as well. Or if you have even certain ways that you have fun that maybe you don't like and you want to get rid of, that can also happen. Same with romantic relationships. Uranus has this very fast type of influence, and it is talking about liberation and detachment. So if there is something unhealthy going on in a romantic relationship, it can also indicate kind of the detachment from those types of relationships as well. Or you could become more kind of experimental or out there with the way that you express romance or love and things like that as well. Or you can even begin to date someone who's very Uranian in nature or something like that. So any of those can be happening. So now let's take a look at Aquarius Rising. Okay, so for Aquarius Rising, this energy is going retrograde in your fourth house. So this, again, a very important house. This is a house of your foundation. So it's almost like a bit of an earthquake in the foundation of your chart. So very foundational things about your life and your private life can be, going through, these big shifts, um, or, dramatic types of changes, things that happen out of the blue kind of connected here. And it can also be about a period of integration of all the changes that have been being made here. Of course, fourth house is connected to home, family, property, land, all of those. So it can definitely talk about suddenly deciding to relocate out of the blue, or suddenly deciding to do something with the home, suddenly deciding to renovate your home, make it more unique and authentic to who you are as a person. But this transit can also talk about breakthroughs, or a breakdown of something. So be aware of kind of any kind of electrical problems within the home or things kind of breaking down around the home. But again, with breakthroughs, this is the house of who you are beneath the surface. So it can also be a really great time for personal development work, and kind of digging into or gaining a new perspective on how you approach family, or on your ancestry, or on your roots, or around your home country, or things like that as well. That can be going on. So developing this new perspective, that can be either very exhilarating and exciting, or it can be kind of stressful, because this is a transit that can create a little bit of stress or anxiety around this environment of life as well. So that can be coming from home or from private life, or big changes happening connected to home, or on an internal emotional type of level as well. So that can definitely be happening. Okay, so fourth house, also, house of family. So it can even indicate sudden or unexpected developments connected to family. That can indicate, suddenly getting a new family member, getting a new pet, even unexpected pregnancy. Things like that can happen when it comes to this energy. And this is an area of life as well where you can be revolutionizing something. So, that can also, again, be connected to your home environment. So, even with this retrograde energy, can bring something back up from the past. So maybe you get this like amazing new idea of something that's been like kicking around your home for a while, and you decide, I'm going to reinvent it, I'm going to re-innovate it, and all those types of things. So it can even talk about a revival of something connected to home, or something within the home, things connected to furniture, all of those types of things. And this is also, where you can need liberation or detachment from something. So it can also talk about, liberating yourself from, say you have a certain family member, something like that. Maybe it's not a very good relationship. Maybe it's more of a toxic relationship. It can talk about wanting freedom from your family. It can even just talk about needing space from your family, maybe taking like a break away from your family and just focusing kind of on yourself and things like that as well. Um, okay, so I think that's everything. Okay, so Pisces rising. Okay, so for Pisces, sun, moon, or rising, this energy will be going on in the third house for you. So I actually kind of love this energy. So the third house is the house of communication, and it does represent kind of the lower mind, and the ideas that we have and how we communicate those, and it's connected to languages and speaking and learning and all those things. But it is talking about communication. So the reason why I really like it is because this is the energy of needing liberation or detachment from something. So this can definitely talk about having very honest conversations. It's a very freedom of speech type of energy. And those types of things. So one thing that can be happening is, having these very honest conversations, either with others or even with yourself. Also for ideas, new innovative ideas, and things like that. This can be an amazing time period to be developing those, working on those, releasing those, or building content around those to be released later, because this, in such a mental house, again, these intuitive flashes of, insight and divine inspiration and things like that, are having like an influence on the mind in some ways. So you can definitely be receiving some of those things. At the same time, this is going to be an area of life where you can have very unexpected or sudden types of developments. Being that the third house is 12th from the fourth, sometimes it can talk about, sudden relocation or something like that. Also the house of siblings and things like that. So there might be very important kind of developments going on in the life of a sibling as well. And at the same time, it can have a bit of a stressful or nervous or anxious type of energy. So in a mental health, mental house that has to do with, self-talk and, mental abilities and things like that. Do be aware of any kind of over excess of, nervousness or mental stress or anxiety and things like that as well. This is also the house of short distance travel and methods of transportation. And again, this energy can represent a breakdown or breakthrough in some way. So, it can be a breakdown or breakthrough when it comes to communications with media, all those things, but it can also be connected to travel plans, to vehicles, to bicycles, any of those methods of transportation, anything that's connected to getting from point A to point B, basically. So do be aware of those types of energies. Or, if you, this can even talk about, reinventing something in this area of life or revolutionizing this area of life in some way. So when it comes to business and business transactions and things like that, or entrepreneurship or self-made wealth, these types of things, you can maybe have, become inspired to do something here, doing like even reworking or revising something connected to media. So, a website, having a really amazing idea for a website, redoing the whole thing before kind of launching that, maybe starting a new YouTube channel, starting a new blog or something like that. Maybe you get inspired to do something that you feel is very unique and authentic to who you are, or something that you have kind of skills with, which also the third house, of course, is skills and learning. So it can even talk about learning something new. Maybe that's something very exciting or out of the box for you. In another way, if you're taking any kind of courses or training and something like that, you can start to have a bit of a different perspective on these things. It can indicate like a shift in, kind of what it is that you're learning, or taking, a different direction, deciding to go a different direction with those things in some way. And this is also a house that does represent, neighbors or siblings or close friends or close relatives or people you see on a day-to-day basis, colleagues and things like that as well. So being retrograde can actually bring some of these people back from the past for those relationships to be reworked or revised in some way, or these people can kind of surprise you as well out of the blue with some kind of news or information, or maybe you receive some kind of shocking piece of information during this time period, because the third house is all about communication, or maybe you change your mind about something in a very powerful way that kind of shocks others. Even if it's something to do with media or technology, maybe you suddenly decide to, totally just redo your website, or maybe you just decide, I'm going to relocate, I'm going to totally change neighborhoods, something like that. Or there can be, this initial process of contemplation around these things as well. But really amazing energy for, new ideas and things like that. And, planning for the future and, getting all those things together, especially if it's something like content creation, like a training, a program, skills that you're honing and things like that. And again, with, retrograde energy, anything that we put a lot of effort into during the retrograde time periods is said to have a much more long lasting, better result when that planet finally moves forward. So developing ideas that you have during this time period can be incredibly powerful. Anything connected to writing or media products or communication, and things like that can do quite well as well. Okay, so moving on to the final sign, Aries, sun, moon, or rising. So for you guys, this energy is happening in the second house. So actually, Uranus is quite a risk-taking energy. So this can actually be a time period where you're making financial risks of some kind, or some very important or sudden developments happening around your own personal resources and finances. But there can be a disruptive influence here as well. So again, this is an area of life where you can have a breakthrough or breakdown in some way. And it can also be an area that is a source of, nervous tension or anxiety in some way. And so those breakthroughs do need to be made. It can also be really good for kind of reevaluating the way that, you're spending, saving, investing, and earning and things like that. But this can be talking about, wanting financial freedom or wanting to make money in a way that's very, authentic and unique to who you are. So it can even talk about, finding other sources of income, or you can make freelance type of work, or breaking out of the social norm when it comes to how you make money in some way, or trying something progressive, or investing in something, technological, or taking some kind of financial risk and things like that. As well. But this is also an area of life where you can have unexpected or sudden types of developments. And again, it's a disruptive energy. So it can even cause a little bit of disruption when it comes to finances and income and things like that as well. This is also where an area of life where you could be revolutionizing something. So if you have any kind of investment or something like that you've been thinking about, maybe this is the time period where you're researching that behind the scenes, or you're developing it behind the scenes to be kind of released later. And at the same time, this is where you can try something from a different or unique kind of perspective. So if you've been trying to do something that's connected to the second house, which, second house isn't just money, it's self-worth, it's, self-esteem, it's our values, it's connected to early family life, it's what we need to survive, it's connected to eating habits and the storage of things and collections of things that we have in our personal belongings, assets, and resources and things like that. So if you've been trying to do something or initiate something in this area of life and it just hasn't been working, this can be an amazing time period for that introspection, where you start to kind of change things and look at them from a different perspective, and try new things and think outside of the box and become more experimental, or even a little bit more rebellious and things like that as well. And, through this retrograde period, you can gain a lot of new insight and clarity around this area of life. And you can even have, sudden intuitive, downloads of information or inspirations on how to make money and things like that. This is also an energy of where you can be needing some freedom, some liberation, some detachment, and things like that as well. So it can be wanting to, have more freedom in the way that you're making money, for sure. But at the same time, this is also a house that's connected to the storage of things. Therefore, it's connected to habits, especially, eating habits, or, habits where you're putting things in your mouth, basically, or, the intake of things. So if you have any kind of, habits like that you're wanting to get rid of, this can be a really amazing time period to liberate yourself from those, or have freedom from those as well. Okay, then. And then, of course, this is also the house of your values and your own self-worth and self-esteem. So those things can be going through very powerful changes. So this, if you are, again, wanting to focus on any personal development, or having, kind of shifts in frequency or vibration with any of those things, this can be a very productive time period to be kind of focusing on those and liberating yourself from what is no longer needed. Defining what your values are and how those relate to the future, especially if it's connected to, how you're making money. Of course, our values are often very connected to how we earn money. So, clarifying those, doing the work around this area of life, and same with self-worth and self-esteem. How much we earn is very much connected to the level of self-worth and self-esteem that we have. So you can have massive shifts here. You can liberate yourself from, attachments and things like that here, because this is also the house of possession and things like that. And Uranus is about liberation. So that becomes quite good if you're wanting to do any of those things, or, something positive to do. Under this energy can be decluttering or getting rid of things that are no longer needed, so that the new can come in as well. So that can also be good, kind of reevaluating your possessions, what is needed, what's no longer needed, what is important to me, authentic to me, those types of things, and what can kind of go to make room for these new exciting things that can be coming in. Okay, so that is the 12 signs. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I was very excited to do this video, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely let me know in the comments if you guys have any questions or feedback. Thank you so, so much, and I hope you have an amazing day.